Shalom, shalom, shalom. Okay, so היום אני אדבר על כל דברים. כל דברים, נכון? So I'm Jewish. I have Hasidist beliefs. I believe in the realms. I believe in the concept of mysticism, that the glory of God is found in the mundane, and that you could understand everything there is to understand about everything within the scope of human perception anyway, if you just, were willing to meditate about it. I've been trying to understand the concept of the suffering of Palestinians and the suffering in Gaza. Such an amazing, fantastic, um, bizarre and grotesque expression of how cruel humans can be to other humans that it's not really that understandable. It's like trying to appreciate a tall building while you're standing right next to it. You're not really able to do that. You need to stand back and look at it in such a way that you can really sort of like see and absorb the grandness of this fantastic structure. You wouldn't really be able to get the sense of it if you stood right next to it, right? One thing that I do understand intellectually is that as a result of South Africa placing the actions of Israel against the Palestinians in Gaza, by placing that before the ICJ, they have actually revealed the depth of the suffering of Palestinians and Gazans to the world. Now, how many people actually pay attention to this stuff? Not very many, but for the people who do pay attention to it, they are able to actually finally see with clarity the depth of the suffering of Palestinians. And let me tell you, the people who have seen the depth of the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza have stood up unanimously and said it must stop. And the people say, Selah, says, תפסיק עכשיו, פשוט, תפסיק. You must. Now, what is the reason that all of Israel, all of the Israelis haven't stood up unanimously and said the suffering of the Palestinians must stop? Why have they not said that? There are many reasons. The average Israeli does not know the depth of suffering of a Palestinian. And what's the reason? Because the government does not allow the journalism in Israel to tell them. They don't know. They would have to see it with their own eyes. The people who have seen it with their own eyes have stood up unanimously and said the mistreatment of the Palestinians must stop. So obviously, the Israeli government, Israelis, and Judaism are not the same thing. Those things are not synonyms. Those are different things. Judaism does not support the massacre and genocide of the Palestinians or any other people in the world. That is not something that Judaism supports. In actuality, Judaism is staunchly against such things. What's the reason? Because in actuality, what is happening to the Palestinians today is precisely what happened to the Hebrews in Egypt. It's precisely the same thing. In Egypt, the Hebrews were a large group of people who were living within the nation of Egypt as a separate group of people that had no intention of assimilating into Egyptian society. They had been there for hundreds of years and had kept their ways and had stayed separate. Palestinians are millions of people living within a country that only has a few million people. There are so many Palestinians in the occupied territories and Gaza that if they were all made Israeli citizens, they could shift any election. And that's what the government of Israel doesn't want. So they've relegated them to being second-class citizens or no citizens at all. And that's precisely what happened in Egypt. That was exactly the conversation that happened in Egypt. That's in the book. You read it for yourself. That is in the book. The Egyptians looked at their society and said, there's a huge number of these strange Hebrew people who've been around for the longest time and they're not like us, but they live within our borders. What are we supposed to do with these people? They don't value our ways or have any desire to become one of us. What are we supposed to do with them? They could ally with our enemies and they could destroy us from within. We have to do something. And what they decided to do by consensus, the Egyptians decided that the best way to handle the Hebrews was to enslave them and make it illegal to educate them. What is happening to the Palestinians today is precisely what happened to the Hebrews in Egypt. It's precisely the same thing.